Welcome to the Rico Insights podcast. Today, I'd like to dive into the topic of process automation, but not just a buzzword, but basically how it actually relates to real-life situations with IT departments and in the boardroom. Today, I'm joined by Gary Moore, who's an expert in process automation and digital transformation. Thank you, Gary. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Andrew. So obviously, hot topic at the moment with lots of organisations who have got challenges to understand, how automation can work and drive efficiencies across their businesses. So, I think this is a great opportunity to share some of the stories that I've experienced of sort of managing teams and working in automation over the last couple of years. Really looking forward to it.
Good, thank you. What would you describe process automation as? As you know, it's a big buzzword.
Yeah.
But how do we relate it back to that field of what is it that you related to a product or to how a solution?
It's a really good question. I think sometimes we struggle with what it actually means, maybe from an organisation ourselves, but also for clients understanding what true automation is. But I think if we can break it down and keep it really simple, and ultimately we probably see and feel it around organisations all the time. Now, if we were to put a very corporate spin on it, it would probably be something like the strategic use of technologies to try and automate repeatable tasks. That's essentially what automation is doing. But I think we can dive deeper than that, because ultimately, whilst there's the technologies which help drive automation and drive productivity, at the heart of all of this is people. People want to bring their true selves to work. They want to do the roles that they're employed to do and bring their skills and talent to the organisation and have the opportunity to do their best. So I think when I look at automation across various organisations that I've worked with, ultimately, it's the people at the front to go, well, how can we really get them to enhance the great work that they can do? And how does technology then fit around that to remove some of the manual tasks, the repetitive tasks, and sometimes the drudgery of the mundane work that they have to do using disparate systems? So, we're using technologies really to try and remove some of those repeatable complexities that we see across lots of organisations.
So if I was a business or an IT manager, how would I recognize some of these, situations or issues within the organization?
Yeah, I think, look, I meet lots of leaders of organisations and various stakeholders within them, and it doesn't take long before you start to recognise and play out where automation can help, and then play back to them where they see their biggest challenges. And what's the fascinating bit about my role is that can really vary from one organisation to another. We see a huge increase in organisations such as finance organisations, where they're really trying to enhance automation within their business because they see multiple complexities, multiple disparate systems that they're working with, which have just grown over the many years that they've been working. So it's a real challenge to try and identify a key area to work on initially and then build out. But that's some of the work that my consultants who work for me within the process automation team are experts in, to help mine and understand and play back those scenarios to the organisations. But leaders know that there's a challenge. For example, in 2025, it's deemed that CEOs, one of their top 5 priorities is to improve productivity. So we know that from various analysis that comes out from the market. It's being able to understand where to prioritise some of the challenges that they see. And that might be in finance, it might be in HR, it might be in supply chain, but where is it you're seeing the biggest risk and the biggest challenge, and where automation could have the biggest impact?
And then what often gets overlooked in terms of the perspective of organizations wanting to take the next step and then look at how we can advance with these processes?
Yeah, I think what normally gets overlooked is where who wants to take responsibility for the problem, right? So we see challenges across all organisations. That's absolutely apparent when I speak to medium or enterprise organisations. And by the way, some of the small businesses want to drive efficiency to increase productivity and ultimately use technologies from the start to be able to build out as well. But I think for me, part of the challenge is ownership. Where does it sit? Are we saying that it sits within IT, or are we saying that it sits within finance, and therefore it's a finance director's responsibility? So I think the first challenge is to understand, who's going to drive this, and where they can see the responsibility to really open this out to be a business use case within their area to replicate across other parts of the organisation. So I think the first hurdle that I see is the ownership bit, because it's a bit fuzzy. But once you understand the complexities that you can resolve using automation, then I think you're in a really good place to present a business case back to other stakeholders, especially senior stakeholders across the board as well.
Now, what kind of example would you give where this sort of process automation is applied in terms of a product or in terms of an application?
Yeah, we see multiple scenarios where it's worked incredibly well. We're working with a large retail organisation at the moment in the UK. They've grown exponentially over the last 15 years, and ultimately then that's caused more multiple disparate systems across their organisation. So we're looking actually at an area within their business which is managing customer complaints, and that's a very manual task currently. So communication will come into the business, it's responded to manually, then that interaction of whatever needs as an output is inputted into a system. The system then needs to be read and checked by somebody to then create an action. And then there's various other tasks in order to resolve some of the challenges that clients are seeing. Now, going back to my original point, automation is great, but it's a technology. At the heart of it is people who want to do something effective. So, most employees don't want to go through multiple processes to solve a customer complaint. They want to be able to find the accurate data. They want to be able to resolve conflict and be able to ensure that customers are getting a great service. So, how we're working with that organisation is to look at how we can connect all of those systems, and actually for the user at the end of the initial complaint to be able to pull the relevant data and then respond back productively. And ultimately, then we can track and measure that against KPIs, right? So there's a portal that we can apply to see how quickly we've responded, how effective that response has been, and ultimately to drive customer satisfaction.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's exactly what organizations, want to achieve.
Yeah.
How do we relate that back to an actual product? So, for instance, we've within Rico, we start digital transformation around MPS, which is Managed Print Service.
Yeah.
And then they find that there's a natural progression to get onto document management, which we do with DocuWare.
Yeah.
And then obviously onto business processes, which we can finite applications that go beyond DocuWare's capability into sort of the business process, which links DocuWare to it, but can expand that out.
Yeah.
My examples that I've kind of come across visiting end users and customers is deliveries of fast-moving consumable goods.
Yeah.
There's up to 4,000 invoices a day coming into these applications, and those have to be processed very quickly and put into systems, and that's where DocuWare takes effect.
Yeah.
But have you come across any examples where we can apply DocuWare, maybe into HR departments?
Yeah, absolutely. HR and finance. So, going back to your invoice example there. So you're absolutely right in what you say. And Rico as an organisation has had a fantastic history in our core services in office print. And then we've evolved to have various applications on top of the print services that we provided. Then in terms of DocuWare, we've seen huge success in terms of a document management system. And that's, over the last 6 or 7 years, we've seen a real growth across Europe and outside of Europe as well in that area. And so following on from that journey, we've got a really good product stack, if you like, which we put under one umbrella of process automation, which is the part of the business that I'm responsible for. Because whilst I'm really, keen to understand what product set meets the client's requirements, from a client's perspective, actually they just want to solve the problem. And it's up for us to use the stack that we've got available. And we've got some fantastic solutions in our portfolio. So yes, absolutely leveraging the work we're already doing with document management and DocuWare. On that, then we can enhance that with Axon Ivy, our process automation solution. And then we've got various other solutions. So we're looking at Native, where we can use Native AI for extraction of data. And that's incredibly successful across Europe as well. And then obviously in various countries, especially this year, there's various regulations that are coming out around e-invoicing and compliancy. So we've got a real stack of solutions that are available to the client to meet their requirements. What we have got in Europe, and especially within my team, is some very experienced consultants who can help organisations understand what their current processes are, what their current challenges are, more importantly, what their strategy is going forward to really align it to their business requirements. And that's probably C-suite conversations to have right at the start of the discussion, because there is budget requirements in this. There is a spend. However, for us to then play back what their current strategy is, how that plays into a certain department, whether it's finance, whether it's HR, then we can start to mine the existing processes and dig really deep into their organisation to then show them what we can do to provide an automation service across their business. And it's up for us then to pull down on the product suite that we feel is best for that organisation.
Now, it sounds very complex, but is it really complex in terms of you saying going very deep into organization? But these are systems that already have big install bases, great examples, easy to implement. What would you recommend this sort of first steps an organization would do, and why aren't they doing it now?
Yeah. So you're right, it does sound complex, and that's the kind of common theme that I always hear is, this is really difficult, when do we take the leap? And let's be honest, human beings don't really like change, right? That's a fact. We like kind of consistency. And the problem that we see across organizations is that we carry on doing the same thing because that's what we're used to. But ultimately, and it's really interesting, if you look at engagement surveys, for example, what we do see is most of the time employees are saying, we want the opportunity to do our best and we want the best technologies to be able to do it. So, and actually it's not as complex as people think. What the advice that we always offer is keep it small, right? So keep it simple and keep it small. So we invariably, and this is the great part about my role, where I get to oversee some of the conversations. And by the way, there's far more incredibly talented people than I who have these far more technical conversations with the organisations we're working with. But from a C-suite level, they just want to solve the challenge. And so the best advice that I always give them is keep it really simple. Try and find somewhere small where you feel that there will be a significant impact that automation will assist and drive productivity, drive efficiencies, and then allow people to remove the work from their manual tasks and go and do the great work that they were employed to do. HR is a really good example. And look, we've used it within Ricoh ourselves, and we've created our own version across HR called iPeople 2.0. That's powered by one of the stacks of the solutions that we've got under process automation, and actually opens out into various others. So it utilizes parts of DocuWare, it utilizes parts of Axon Ivy. We can then enhance it with AI as well, because the reality is what HR business partners want to be doing is the true great stuff that they were employed to do, which is help the organisation be more effective. The challenge is that they were caught doing all these incredibly manual tasks. And, as I keep saying, the kind of drudgery of using manual systems, inputting into historic applications, the systems not talking to each other. Now we've got one dashboard, iPeople 2.0, where people can log into it, they can raise tickets, they can go and search for information. And that's now been applied across our onboarding, offboarding, talent management, talent acquisition, and we can build that out as we go through various phases. And that's what the guys are doing at the moment. So it doesn't need to be big bang across your whole organisation. Find an area which you feel will have the biggest impact, and then use our consultants to absolutely do the mining of those processes. But that's what they're experienced to do, and people will be available to do that within your organisations as well. And it doesn't take as long as people think. Within a few workshops, we've been able to really identify some key pain points, and then our challenge is to stop it expanding too quickly. Because then it accelerates. Well, we could do it over here in this part of the business, and then we could open out into finance. Actually, what we try and do is, let's do a great job here first, demonstrate what that looks like, see the benefits of it, and then we can expand out over time using our stack of technologies that we've got available to the client, and partner with them through that journey as well.
So what you're saying is that it shouldn't be as complex or as big or only apply to certain very large organizations. It's got to looking at simple tasks, bringing in various solutions that you have from legacy, and then tying them into an application that enables, obviously, the company to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, look, the stack of solutions that we've got, as I've mentioned, with DocuWare, Axon Ivy, Native, e-invoicing, certain individual ones of those work really well within certain parts of the market. And so we're not completely siloed to go, this has to be big enterprise organizations. However, it fits probably more with the whole suite of solutions that we offer into that kind of top end of mid-market enterprise area, because that we know is where organizations are investing in, and the larger organization, the more disparate the systems. So take an organization that we're working with in the US at the moment. They've expanded, and through various acquisitions, they've become a very big global enterprise. However, they've got, through acquisitions, various systems and complexities that they're now trying to all join up to have, a centralized system for everyone to be able to utilize. So our role is to kind of go, well, what will work first to start that journey, and then let's build on that solution, and we can expand it out as we go forward. So it doesn't need to be incredibly complex initially, and in certain areas, and we had an example of this in for a marketing organisation in the UK, where actually they were looking at a solution where they're very much they're a client-facing business, so the clients are able to enter their systems and see various data. Actually, that data was quite complex, and they were having to navigate various systems in order to extract that information that they wanted for the clients to be able to play it back to their clients. So we're able to automate all of those systems to give the users really good access to the information that they want to see, that's important and will strategically benefit them in order to enhance their business. But predominantly we see it in the slightly larger organisations where there's huge investment in these areas.
So looking at the other buzzwords out in the industry now, AI. So you mentioned native AI.
Yeah.
That was an acquisition that came through DocuWare. Can you talk a little bit about how AI or native AI is influencing the document management process system?
Yeah, so look, we've had some incredible success with native AI, obviously through DocuWare, and it enhances that kind of document management element of our business, and then layered that on top with Axon Ivy with the process automation or orchestration layer. Then it gives us a really good, strong story to work with organisations. Look, let's follow the cycle, right? So we, predominantly sold and sell and are really successful in office print. Printers are doing something. Invariably, they're scanning data, and then they want to do something with that data. So using either DocuWare and Native, we're able to extract that data and then with Native's technologies do something intelligent because it's reading and extrapolating the relevant data and putting that into various systems. But then what? Then what do you do with that data? So data's data, right? That's great. You get good data in, and which is half the battle. And then putting an orchestration layer on top, something like Axon Ivy, as part of our process automation suite of products. Then we're able to go, well, what do you want to do with it? What's the tasks that are needed to be completed? So, invoicing. You get a great invoice in, and it's all clean from whether it's hard copy, whether it's a electronic copy. But I think, ultimately then layering on something else to do something with that data, create tasks, and then report those back. That's the really valuable work.
And then what's the benefits of obviously clearing up this data and getting good data in, good data out? And then, but how does that actually come back as a return to the suite of organizations?
Yeah.
The IT manager has his task of trying to get a process in place. But what does that really mean to the organization in terms of benefits?
Yeah, so one of the biggest challenges that we see, and I attend some conferences, we partner with an organization called Corporate Research Forum, and they work with members, HR directors across lots of organizations. And it's really interesting having those conversations at the seminars that I attend, because one of the key problems is data, getting good data in to then take good data out and do something with it. So that's a real business challenge at the moment. And by the way, that links really closely to AI. So, AI is only good as the data that it's seeing within your systems, whichever application of AI you're using, right? So, that's a big challenge. And we work with lots of organizations who are already journeying through that at the moment to go, actually, we need to really clean up, what we're putting into the system, what we can read, what is the true data that's valuable for us to access, and then what can we do with it from there? And that's when then you can build into the solution really good applications like process automation, inclusive of AI as well. And then you're getting great data out. I remember a really good quote from a guy from a large recruitment organization where he was talking about a data and the complexities of it. And ultimately he was saying, our role is for the data to enable us to make great decisions. But that's only beneficial if you've got good stuff in there in the first place.
No, absolutely. So Gary, if I was an organization or a enterprise that recognized that I need to drive change, and you've obviously had several legacy systems in place that you want to now look at bringing this all together under a process automation, how would I go about doing that?
Well, the first great thing is that you've identified that you need to do something differently, because I think that's the biggest leap. So, that being the first case, and you see the advantages of how, let's say, automation can enhance your organization, that's the first leap of change, which is great. My suggestion would be is to then start prioritizing where you think that work could take place. So you've made the leap to think, do you know what, actually, I do want to make areas of this organization that I work for more productive and more effective. Where is it that I could see the biggest impact? So my suggestion would then be probably to get a small project group together, and they can form of people who are within the function. So let's take HR, for example. You could get an HR SME who will know the systems that they're using and also to understand the work that they want to be doing. And so with an HR SME and probably some IT personnel within the organisation, probably a project manager involved in there as well, you can start a workshop to really start to understand the challenges within a certain area. So, as an example, you go to HR and say, I want to drive efficiencies within this part of the business. Tell me how big the problem is. You would then get an HR SME, some IT experts, some project manager, a small project group to go, okay, let's identify where that is. And it might be, for example, in onboarding. And then you'd map out the existing process that you've got to onboard talent into your organisation. Then you'd be able to understand the various processes and systems and applications in place right now today that someone goes through in order to onboard someone into their organisation, as an example. Now, once you've done that, you'll essentially see some of the challenges that you've got within your business. My recommendation then is to bring in one of our consultants, so reach out to Rico, whether that's through your business partners, whether that's directly to Rico itself, and then we will be able to navigate some of those challenges that you're seeing. So we will have versions that will be able to help you with the challenges that you've got through those processes. And then with our product stack, then go, well, which one's the right one to solve the challenge that you're seeing? So then we can play back your onboarding system with a really effective solution using one of our process automation technologies, or all of them, depending on the scale of the challenge. And that part of the process is really powerful then. And we've done that with lots of organizations where we essentially 2 pictures. This is what it is today. This is what it could look like. And then the benefits of that in terms of productivity and efficiencies and how you want to put an ROI around that from there. So that would be my advice, is to find a certain area, play out the existing system, and then get one of our experienced consultants teams in to then play back what good looks like, and then see where that journey takes you from there.
No, this is a great insight. Thank you, Gary. Then thanks for our listeners for joining us today. I hope that we can take this conversation to action, to actions within, their organizations, and see how we can support them moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, really enjoyed it. As you know, I could talk about this for hours. I'm super passionate about it. I think we're in a great position with Rico, with the technologies that we're able to offer. I think organizations, have lots of challenges going forward. And ultimately, how can we partner with them more effectively to work collaboratively and build that strategic solution for them? And I think that's the value that we can add as an organization.
Great. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Rico.